What do you think is at the core of the destruction of this country? What was the first moment you were like, the country is falling apart?
It kind of goes back to schooling. I didn't understand at the time, but a lot of students around me were saying, why are we learning this crap, basically?
What we're seeing is the government actually enforcing policies that is shaping Australia into a different position that we've never seen before.
This decimation happened to everyone in the country. That was the birth of Turning Point. During COVID, the guardians of democracy were the media. They were meant to be the guardians, but they were corrupt.
Look, I've talked to people within the Navy, and I don't want to say names, but they've shared with me privately, look, George, we can't build anything. We've created a situation that's just a huge influx. It's almost like an experiment, like a mad experiment.
When the result came in 20 minutes later, I said, all the Liberal consultants, you should be fired.
And then the Liberal Party, which was supposed to be the competent, whatever field it was in, you knew if you were voting Liberal, you were going to get a professional who knew how to get things done.
You know where your roots lie because it's where you're connected. Those are a couple of new things I'm working on the background, and I'm not going to announce those until we pull the trigger on that. When I see the people in this state, they are starving. They don't see leadership around, and they don't see a situation where they have confidence in having more kids or raising a family.
I think there is an objective truth. I think there is a one truth, and everything else is a delusion. It's always God first. When you put God first, our country, Australia, will thrive. Special episode today. We're joined by Joel Jammal, who flew all the way from New South Wales. And it must be quite important for you to be here. So,
Yeah, just for you, only the best. Only the best for Adelaide.
Thank you. Yes, well, the question is why? Why come to Adelaide? Why is there such importance in South Australia? And this is the first time we've met, by the way, so this is an honour.
No, it's so weird, like the amount of phone calls we've done, and you don't realise till you meet each other. You're like, this is the first time.
Yeah.
But no, why am I here? I'm here because South Australia is basically going into crisis. You guys have an election in March. There seems to be a crisis of leadership. It seems every day I see a new story about a new leadership spill in this country. South Australia might be next as we're filming this video. And the Liberals are in crisis mode. The minor parties are struggling to get organised. And to be frank, look, this is what I do. I do elections. I love coming in with the Turning Point projects. And I'm pleased to be working with you because there's a lot of people in South Australia that when we appointed you as the coordinator for this state, they called me up. They said, good choice. They said, George is not a political animal, but he's very astute with regards to politics. And they very much enjoy watching your commentary online. And so I'm here to make some content with you, meet some interesting people in the lead up to the election.
Yep.
But I do care about Adelaide. I love coming to this state. It's a really awesome state. It's beautiful in the city here. It's very well organised. But I don't think that South Australia is at its full potential. I think there's so much more that could be done.
Yeah, well, there's actually grand conspiracies around why Adelaide hasn't been unleashed to the world, essentially. And look, you're right. I mean, Adelaide, the city was built in a Roman plan. So it's very simple. It's very easy to get around. 15 minutes there, 15 minutes there. Right now, we're building one of the biggest infrastructure projects in the country with the South Road project. So that's going to be interesting. Funny enough, you said about a leadership crisis. This morning, I got a message saying the Premier is a Freemason.
Right.
And I was like, what? Apparently
I am too.
you are. Yeah, we're all are, apparently, yeah. So yeah, I just thought
I haven't got the check yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if it comes with a check, but apparently it's a check.
Please, would be great. No, but yeah, so that's the state we're at, where people are confused, they're angry, they don't know what to turn to, they don't know who to blame. And I think that's what's happening right now across Australia, across the world. Who is there to blame? What is the issue, essentially? And I guess my question for you is, what do you think is at the core of the destruction of this country? What was the first moment you were like, yes, this is an issue, the country is falling apart?
Look, it kind of goes back to schooling. I mean, I remember being in school and having a lot of the Aboriginal studies shoved down our throats. And I didn't understand at the time, but a lot of students around me were saying, why are we learning this crap, basically? Like, we've got a curriculum here. We should be learning about, reading, writing, maths, all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes to that, we're not learning the critical things, and it's falling by the wayside. And when it comes to all the Aboriginality stuff, the LGBT stuff, Christianity is bad stuff, the Crusades were bad stuff. Here we are. It's basically a demonization of what made Australia an awesome country. The Westminster system, Christianity, the way that our laws are made. I think that it's an all-out assault on what makes this country strong. Because if you can assault that, you can more easily replace it with communism,
Yeah.
really anything that gives a certain group of people more power over the country.
It's actually fascinating you mentioned that, because now I'm thinking about it. A lot of these left-leaning people, especially the extreme woke left, they love things like affirmation technology. You know, affirmation, like I am the best, I am the best.
Mm.
But what they don't realize is their self-hating, their self-hatred of their own race, their own self-hatred of their own culture, their self-hatred of their British roots or wherever they're from in terms of Europe, is actually affirming their country into destruction. And we saw what happened in Rhodesia. We see what happens in South Africa. And that's what happened in South Africa. They had a strong border. And then there was a deal, and then the border became less secure, and it just streamed in. Anyone could come into South Africa, and overnight, South Africa became one of the most dangerous places on earth to live.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're lucky in Australia. We have an ocean full of sharks surrounding us, but
Yeah.
what we're seeing is the government actually enforcing policies that is shaping Australia into a different position that we've never seen before. And
Yeah.
when we're 30% of the population? You can fact check. I'll check. But 30% of the population is not even born.
That's right.
In Australia?
31% foreign born, maybe 32% foreign born, and 52% are either foreign born or the children of immigrants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think really what that highlights is there's a lack of integration. It's coming too quickly.
Yeah.
We need to slow it down. I think what a lot of adults that are watching these streams and watching what's going on in this country, they remember a time when politics was in its box.
Yeah.
They remember a time when the adults were in the room taking care of it. You didn't really have to think about it. You were more concerned about, okay, how can I get my next house? How can I put my kids in better schools? How can I actually plan what holiday we're going to do at the end of the year? We're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about survival.
Yeah.
People can't afford groceries. Kids have basically said, I'm going to be a renter forever. We're talking about zero buy-in from kids into their country. And we're basically seeing the red carpet rolled out for anyone that wasn't born here.
Yeah.
And I think that, why are we allowing so many immigrants to come to this country for free? Like, there are a lot of people that would pay for our healthcare, that would pay to live a very good life here. We have some of the safest cities in the world. For women to walk down, I think Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, we've got some of the safest cities with regards to women walking down the street year on year. And yet we're squandering that and just handing it to foreigners for free to come here.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of people are asking the question, what happened to the lucky country?
Yeah.
What happened? And that's not a phrase that is mine. I actually just finished reading a phenomenal book from another guy from Adelaide, Damien Costas. He wrote this phenomenal book called What Happened to the Lucky Country, and he's actually Greek as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go.
But he breaks it down, the Australian ethos, what it was like for him growing up, how we've been snookered, how this perfect storm's kind of taken over. And I just think that Australians, they've been so devoid of any understanding of how to influence politics, because in the past it kind of sorted itself out.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here. That's why Turning Point Australia exists. It's
Yeah.
to help. It's run by it's by Australians for Australians, funded by Australians.
Australians, yep.
So that we can actually help breathe our values into politics.
Yeah, and I was saying this just to my audience before, like these mottos, you got Australia first, make Australia great again, Turning Point, Australia. At the end of the day, these are just mottos.
Yeah.
Like Turning Point is the turning point of a country.
Yeah.
Australia first, America first. It's the mottos are sadly being attached to foreign entities. But reality is these for us to do our work, we have to be independent. We have to be strong. We have to be courageous and step up to do this.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fight. No,
I can elaborate on that.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
Like, how did Turning Point Australia come about?
Yeah, let's hear that. Actually, that'd be interesting to hear.
Well, look, unlike Turning Point USA, 13 years ago, Charlie Kirk started it. He had no degree. He basically started in the universities. He hit the pavement. He basically held these change my mind sort of segments. And that's grown, and now it's, thousands of chapters across the country, and budget of 150 million. Now, Australia, very different story. We were born 4 years ago. It was the 1st of September, 2021. We were born out of the COVID movement, the lockdowns. It was the first time in Australian history our churches were closed down. Never been closed in history, even during the wars. And we had people hitting the pavement in the streets, protests as big as the Vietnam War, basically. And people were marching against the restriction on free speech, the restriction from jumping between state borders, the ability to go to work, for God's sake, and pay taxes.
See your family member die.
Yeah, yeah.
See their family member die. Couldn't
Ex-
even.
couldn't even see a fact. Look, my dad, and he was in that situation in 2020, and this is a story of many people. 4 weeks into starting my show, with nothing but iPhones, as many people did, yeah, he was getting cancer treatment in Mexico, and when the lockdowns hit, he couldn't leave anymore to go and get that cancer treatment, and so he was winning that battle until that happened,
Yeah.
and the lockdowns killed him. And it's like that. That is the story, not just of me, but of many people
Yeah.
that experienced that lost their jobs. I lost my job. I was in construction and property development. I worked for a company called Eastern Pacific. I got made redundant because of the lockdowns. And so did many of my siblings, their partners. I think we lost 8 jobs between us. This decimation happened to everyone in the country. That was the birth of Turning Point. That was the
So
birth
that was
of
essentially the turning point.
100% with
Yeah.
regards to being civically involved. And so Charlie was graciously introduced to us from Nigel Farage. I'd worked on a few tours with Nigel Farage, and I had the great pleasure of picking his brain on a lot of things in those tours. Now, Nigel connected us with Charlie, and Charlie basically gave us a branding agreement. We don't get a dollar from the US, not $1. It's run by Australians, for Australians, funded by Australians, by the grassroots.
Yeah.
And so I leaned into that with my name, my advertising revenue from YouTube, and some of the merchandise I sell. And that is the fact of the matter. Everything I do is journalism, commentary, and political activism.
Yeah.
And that has basically been what's been missing in our sphere. During COVID, the guardians of democracy were the media. They were meant to be the guardians, but they were corrupt. They took bribes from the government in the form of tax breaks, and they towed the government line. And that's where people like you came up with the Adelaide set. That's where people like me came up before Turning Point in Australia. And that is why Charlie basically trusted me with the brand. It was like, here's a guy that is showing people how to breathe their values into politics. And so, look, if the day comes, God forbid, that Turning Point USA and I don't agree on values as Christians or as conservatives or as where I can't put Australia first, goodbye Turning Point. I will stick to my name. It's a good name.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't mind doing, and I've been very consistent on that. So no, look, I simply wouldn't have survived the last 5 years, credibility wise, if I was taking money from the US, Turning Point, and especially if I was, not putting Australia first. It's just not. It's bad enough that we're divided in this country. We don't need to be throwing unfounded insults like that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to clear that up because you did mention that to me yesterday, and I was just like, not sure where this is coming from because the money hasn't landed.
Yeah, I think it's just the mistrust. We're seeing a lot of mistrust,
Yeah, fair enough,
particularly with the conservative right. Right, we are probably the most hypochondriac of the political arms. The left are very good at being united. They stand with a cause. They'll get right wingers to be like. There's right wingers, hardcore right wingers that are in the Labor Party. Very staunch conservatives in the Labor Party. The premier of this state, apparently, from what I've heard from close friends, this is Adelaide, we know everyone. Apparently, he's a very, very conservative man.
Yeah.
Apparently, the premier doesn't like transgenders. He's a Catholic, even though he doesn't vote that way.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that from these rumours and what you hear in Adelaide, because it's a small city, not even our premier is authentic in his way of being.
Yeah.
But that makes them different because they will solidify, they will be strong, they will stick together, and they'll fight for their cause. The slow march to take over Australia, the slow march to communism, the slow march of introducing policies that are similar to those you would see in North Korea.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing, where the right is all factions fighting, no unity. We don't trust this person, we don't trust that person. That person's a Zionist, that person's a Islamist, that person's there's always a name. Yeah. Or he's a Mason, or he's a this. There is no unity there. And look, fair enough.
It's fair enough. Honestly, you got to give the devil their due. Like, the people's trust is an absolute low. This is the fourth turning.
Yep.
This is the fourth turning.
Yep.
For those of you the nerds out there that have read that book, The Fourth Turning, phenomenal book. 80 years ago, the institutions that made Australia great, they were created. And a lot of them basically have been falling by the wayside. I won't name them, but we are seeing right now the creation of new institutions, new newspapers, new campaigning organizations, new political parties that are on the up and up. And look, it's our job to not be like, distrusting of everything. We should do our own homework. You shouldn't believe a word I say.
Of course.
But at the same time, that kind of puts the onus on people like us and other organizations. Be as transparent as possible. Authenticity is king. And so I do try to make myself as accessible as possible. And I'm looking forward to doing many events across the country, including in South Australia, so that we can give people that opportunity to have a go. It's funny, I had a similar situation with the Light newspaper, which people might find interesting. So I came into the ownership of the Light newspaper early last year. They came out during COVID and they were running well for 2 years, but the owners asked me to take over it because they were basically, frankly, getting really tired and sick of it. They needed to retire. They were a bit older. And there was a bit of a sense of distrust because, again, these are freedom people like us. They came out of COVID. They don't trust the government. And they perceived me buying the paper as a Liberal Party takeover, which is a laughable proposition to me. The Liberals hate my guts. So we flew over there, and for 3 hours we took questions until there were none left. And we earned the trust of the people. We won the hearts and minds of the people. And that is why I say I wouldn't have survived 5 years if these accusations were true.
Yeah.
And I'll continue to front those questions. But every time we're talking about this stuff, we're not talking about the things that are going on in this country. There's an opportunity cost. Every week, and you know this as a content creator, there's about 1 post you can do a day, 7 a week, which is prime time. Maybe 2 if you do 1 in the morning or 1 at night. The problem we've got is there's an opportunity cost in what we talk about. We have that many things being thrown at us. People that, in short, are putting Australians last, Australia's national interests last, and they want us to focus on things overseas. They want us to focus on the internal divisions. They're more interested in doing something like the voice referendum to give the Aboriginal people like a high court in Australia. That is the sort of thing that we need to be careful of. We have so many things coming at us. We need to focus on the bread and butter issues that affect the bulk of Australians, which we're all going through. And so that's why I keep mentioning the fact that, I'm from the construction industry. People can't afford a home. Why is that? With immigration, with red tape, with construction costs and manufacturing going overseas. We're not talking about this. Where are the papers that go through that? And I know you work for some phenomenal economists that talk about these issues. But also, what's going on with groceries? Why is it that our farmers have to go to Coles or Woolies? What has happened with this duopoly? Why is it that our banks are the most profitable banks in the world, the big 4 banks? And why is it that they're eye gouging the homeowners in this country? What's going on? In terms of regulation, what is going on? That's what I'm more interested in talking about rather than people that have 0 receipts of stuff that I'm doing and you're doing, when we wouldn't have survived if that stuff was true.
Yeah.
And look, that's my attitude with the South Australian election. How can we make Adelaide a really phenomenal and proud state again? It was a really lucky state. It was founded, correct me if I'm wrong, as the first sort of state in Australia that was, they were volunteers that came here. They
settlers.
chose to come here.
Yeah.
What is it? The City of Churches?
The City of Churches, and we are supposedly the only, free settled state. So the whole history of South Australia, until 1836, was that we were established to be a free state, to have our own unique independence from the rest of the colonized, the ones that were being used essentially for pulling the bad people away from England and other parts of Europe. But South Australia had that charm, and we, even foundations, it was always, we're going to plan everything. Like the city was planned. We have the biggest parklands in the world. 4 times New York Central Park surrounding us. The way the streets are named, the way the streets are even positioned, all of it is meticulous and crafted to be really well done. Even the way the River Torrens comes through was a fresh water source at the time. The Adelaide Hills, 20 minutes away. The ocean, beautiful oceans. You go an hour, you're in places that resemble Portugal. All these things are very apparent to the people who've settled here. They knew this state had such great potential. The uranium resources we have, the copper, the gold, the silver. We have some of the biggest, if not the biggest resources in the world. Oil.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest explorers of our time, Sir Douglas Mawson, who basically, with him and the Sprigs, discovered most of, the resources up north that have given Australia so much prosperity across the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's obviously issues with the mining companies in terms of the way they do their taxes, according to some pundits out there.
Yeah.
But look, that opened up doorways to things like alliances with, we say the US. People don't want to talk about the US, but the US did come here to Woomera and test out all their technologies here. Pine Gap, which is a secret facility in the middle of Australia, which has some of the most sophisticated radar
They've
technology.
done some pretty bad stuff with Pine Gap.
Well, look, Pine Gap they can hear. So if a grenade goes off anywhere in the world, they can hear it.
It's crazy.
Anywhere. An RPG goes off, they can hear it. It's crazy.
Can I say a couple of things? So that was really good, rattling off all the different things that are great about this state. Two things which are huge. First thing, oil. The fact that you have oil here. Where are the oil refineries?
Yeah.
What have we got? One oil refinery in the whole of Australia? So for those of you that didn't know, and this is a crisis, we have something like just under 30 days of unleaded fuel, and we have about 13 days of diesel, maybe less. And the idea that all of our oil is coming and being refined through Asia, if a war breaks out between China and Taiwan, we're stuffed.
Yeah.
There will be a run on the supermarkets in places like Sydney and the East Coast where the population centres are. It'll be a disaster. And the idea that you've got oil here and we're not fully exploiting that, we do need to see at a federal level, use it or lose it with these licenses, and we need to be doing oil refinery again. That is a crisis. That is worth 10 videos.
Yeah.
Overnight, if I said right now, our oil has basically, a war has broken out between China and Taiwan. China is basically bombing our tankers and we can't get oil to Australia. We're stuffed.
Yeah.
We're stuffed. Millions will die.
Yeah.
And we can't even, it's so funny. I was saying to a One Nation senator, Warwick Stacey, former Senator Warwick Stacey of New South Wales, I was saying to him, we're going to have to go back to, horse and cart. And he said, well, we can't even do that. We don't have the horses.
Yeah.
It's in that moment you realize we are going back to the dark ages.
Yeah.
But no, people want to talk about how Joel may be a Freemason.
Yeah.
With no evidence.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, we've got to readjust our priorities. And the other thing is the submarines. What happened with
Well, we're supposed to be building them here, but
yeah.
Look, I've talked to people within the Navy, and I don't want to say names, but they've shared with me privately, look, George, we can't build anything. Like, we suck at building stuff here.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a disaster. Like, we don't have the capabilities here to do what we need to do. And going back to the war horses, South Australia was the birth. Glenthorne is where we made all the war horses for World War I, World War II. So that was South Australia as well. Then that got bought out by CSIRO and turned into like some sort of research facility. But yeah, look, South Australia's had a pinnacle part in a lot of Australia's history, even in terms of policy. Like, we were the first to, these are woke policies, but we were the first to legalise gay marriage. In terms of, gay, even being gay. Like, before it was illegal to be gay. Yeah. And then we had a bashing in the River Torrens where a gay lecturer was killed, bashed to death.
Right.
Overnight, that was changed. I think we were the first state to allow women to vote as well.
That's right. That's right. I keep, it's funny. I tell the New Zealanders that. I tell the New Zealanders that because they're like, oh, we were the first country. And I was like, we had the first state.
Yeah.
It was South Australia.
Yeah.
Moving on. Can I just say, the other thing about Adelaide and maybe New South Wales and other states, we've gone this whole conversation and we haven't even mentioned the fact that you're Greek or I'm Lebanese and Syrian. And I think the level of integration that we've seen in Adelaide with a lot of the ethnics that came here is phenomenal. It wasn't easy, obviously 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Yep. But we see people, that social cohesion in a really phenomenal place.
Look, and even in saying that, I'll speak directly from perspective of growing up around Greeks, being around and bringing up my family. Like, even my grandfather, my father would say, it's taken them 30 to 40 years to assimilate here. A long time.
Yeah.
Like, I think a majority of my family's deep wishes would be to be in Greece, but Greece is not very economically good right now, so you just can't. So there is, my point being is that it takes decades to assimilate to this country. And yes, the Greeks and Italians are really well behaved. There were some issues, but mostly well behaved, unlike the Vietnamese that, did a few stabbies, but they also were really well behaved eventually.
Stabby.
Yeah, they were
just a few casual stabby.
They'll just stab it around.
The Lebos too.
The Lebo, yeah, look, there's always problems. But the thing is, with the policies we used to have, they were understood. They were philosophical. They were ontological. We understood the being of human nature. The different cultures mixing together will take time and decades. Yeah. Now what we've created the situation is just a huge influx it's almost like an experiment, like a mad experiment.
Yeah, it is.
And we have no idea what's going to happen.
Prison Island.
And look, don't get me wrong, I believe in humanity. I believe a lot of these people who come here are genuinely good people who want what's best. I like to see the good in humans.
Yeah.
But even if it's 10% or 5% who don't, we have big issues in this country. It only takes a small amount of population who don't like this country, who hate this country, who hate British people, who hate Caucasian people, for example, very hated at the moment, to make this country very unpleasant to be in. And then you see it through the rhetoric. You see it through even our own, you said, the schooling systems, the college systems, young women and men. You got the women, for example, who want to fit in. Women generally want to fit in. They want to feel like they're proud and they're politically savvy. So they will go along with these woke ideologies. And then you got the boys, the simp boys, I call them, who just agree. They won't have a backbone because they want to get, they want to get a girlfriend. So then they'll play along with these woke kind of ideologies, and some even believe in them.
Yeah.
And that's when you see a destruction there, because the men are demasculating themselves. They're becoming more feminine. The women are becoming masculine and becoming the ones that hold the keys to the castle. And you're left with a society and a group of people who have no identity, who hate themselves, who affirm to themselves that they're useless, that they're pathetic, that they're colonizers, that they want to destroy themselves, essentially. And they are destroying themselves. Essentially, this country's worst enemy is its own people, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that, because being Greek background, we're very proud people. And I think that's one of the benefits of having an ancient Greek history, is that when I was a young kid, I would fall back on my ancient Greek history. Like if I was having a time, being bullied at school or having a rough time at school, I'm like, George, your ancestors were warriors. We fought Persian empires. We fought with spears and swords. We were blacksmiths.
Colonized the Middle East, I just recently found out.
Yeah, we were philosophers. Like you're a proud human. You need to be proud of that. And that would carry me through whatever challenge.
Yeah.
See, Australians don't have that right now. Australians have we're a new country. We used to have the Anzac spirit. There was something there with the Anzac spirit for a little bit. Yeah. And now that seems to be washing away, which is very, very frightening.
They've been snookered. I don't want to ruin the book, but people have got to read that book, man, by that Greek guy, Damien Costas, about what happened to the Lucky Country. He details the 5 elements of the perfect storm that happened, and it really explains what happened to Australia and why his family, which was Greek, was better placed to weather the storm. And he goes from everything from testosterone levels to the family structure to the universities to social media. He breaks everything down. It's actually quite... I was reading on the way to America. I was just recently in Florida, and I was just listening to it, and I was just like...
Good book.
Mind blown. Yeah, I was... You know what it is? Because like we're in the thick of politics so much. This actually wove it all together. And because he's about 43, 44, he's been around probably 10 years old, a lot older than us, 10, 15 years older than us. He's seen more of the country, and he saw more of it when it was good. We're kind of getting the fumes of it. We're nostalgic almost for something we never even fully saw. Although it was good in the early 2000s. But you touched on something, the immigration thing. I think part of the reason why, I'm fully from the Levantine region of the Middle East, Lebanese and Syrian Christians. And you've obviously got the Greek background. So I'm the child of immigrants, and so are you. I think the reason why a lot of immigrants like ourselves that adopted the language, even the accent, and the values of Australia and a fair go, is the fact that we don't like that other people are coming in now that aren't doing that. It's like they're breaking the deal. Because it was not easy. My dad had got into that many punch-ups at train stations, at school, to almost earn his respect, him and his brothers, and on my mum's side as well. It wasn't easy.
I'm sure you experience similar things I'm sure you would have.
Didn't. No,
oh, really?
I didn't. No, look, I went to a very white school. It was actually fine. It was never an issue. And I think that sort of shows... I went to a really good school. I was really proud of it. It was the King's School. It was about 85% white.
I know King's,
we had, a bunch of, we had a healthy dose of Asians, Indians, a few Arabs. It was a really good cross section of society. We played rugby, we played cricket. I played the cello. We integrated. We did the cadet corps. We were very proud of the inter-school competitions, the war cries. we felt like, honestly, I didn't realize I was a Lebanese guy till I left school.
Yeah.
When society thrusts it upon you and says, you got to think with your skin color or your eyebrows. In my case,
Very good eyebrows.
and I think, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
getting an HD, and hopefully they're getting a 4K.
I'm only just realizing how important eyebrows are to facial proportions and attractiveness. So,
is that right?
yeah,
Of
so
course
eyebrows are a big deal. I'm studying it. I'm looks maxing. I'm studying it. Thank you, Clav.
But this is the thing. This is the thing. We're in Adelaide. South Australia voted 64% against the voice for the Aboriginal voice of the Parliament. Now, this country is hanging by a thread. We're no longer ethnically homogenous. We're no longer religiously homogenous. We're no longer basically joined by language either. A lot of people, their kids, they've been here for 5-6 years. They're having kids. The kids are starting preschool. They don't even speak English yet. They're born here. They've been here for 6 years. All we have left is our flag. There is nothing left binding us together. And that is why I think we're constantly getting this assault on the flag. I mean, Anthony Albanese making it a priority that, we got to do the voice. I will enforce it in full. Why is it that, do you think that Adelaide voted 64% no? It was 64%, right?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we can check it. I'll check it and add it to the video.
Number 2.
But I know it was definitely a big no. And look, I think that South Australia is a place that's very silent majority style. I think recently people are starting to get a bit more brave and speak their minds, especially like bourgeois, old money class. They're starting to speak up a little bit more.
Thank God.
Which we need, which is very essential. Like that's why Napoleon was so successful, because he had a lot of the bourgeois, a lot of the old money people on his side. So we're seeing that happening in Adelaide. And I think after how it went down with COVID, how poorly Stephen Marshall was treated, even though he made some tremendous mistakes, everyone was like angry at him. He was like almost a protest. We'll blame Stephen Marshall for.
Yeah, he was doing the COVID app, the tracking app, and all that.
Tracking apps, putting Nicholas Spira at the front line and making her like the queen. Like we had Adelaide here talking about Nicholas Spira being the queen when she was one of the most disliked people from half of the population. Adelaide was the only one propping her up. And then we also had the worry of conspiracy around Adelaide and how their Labour ties, like they seem very left-leaning.
Yeah.
Same with like these other companies, I won't mention their names, but they're very left-leaning. So I think people started to see that in South Australia and realise they had like a eureka moment, like we're being pushed to be a very certain way, and people kind of just had enough of that. But the problem is, yes, we voted no, but we still voted in the Premier, Peter Malinowskis.
When the voice vote happened on the night, I not only did I predict the result, I said it was going to be 60-40 and 15% won't vote, and it ends up being 13% didn't vote. I said that when the result came in 20 minutes later, I said all the Liberal consultants, all of you companies that are consulting the Liberals about how to campaign, you should be fired. How is it you can win a referendum, the people are on your side on a very simple proposal, but the moment we introduce the Liberal brand, you're going backwards.
Okay, look, this is a very complicated issue. Essentially what's happened is we have a very factional situation in the Liberal Party here. We have Senator Alex Antic, who essentially is the real leader of the Liberal Party. And his mission, from what I understand, and what it's quite clear to anyone, is that he needs to eradicate all the moderates, all the undercover Greens from the Liberal Party. And you have people like Michelle Lenzik and others who, and Russ and all these types, who are very moderate, very left-leaning. They'll have the LGBT flag in the office, and they'll be very proud about climate change, very supportive of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of people were vocally unhappy about that. And so Alex Antic saw there's an opportunity to go, okay, well, there is a part of the population that's not happy with how moderate the Liberal Party is now.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to take it upon myself to clean out the party. I'm going to clean out the party and make it ultra-conservative, Christians, blah, blah, blah. The only problem with that is, though, when you're doing something like that, it weakens the party. Because when there's so much infighting, when there's so much destruction happening within the party, there's an aura to that. You can feel that energy. So when you are around the Liberal Party and you see what happens, all this infighting, David Spears this, blah, blah, blah.
People just get out.
People can smell it. They can feel it. They can feel the uncertainty of it. So Alex Antic might have a mission, but it's taking too long. This should have been a 4-year thing. If he really wanted to make this Conservative Party, he should have made it Conservative. He should have got better candidates in straight away, make strong candidates.
Yeah.
Instead, what I feel like is a lot of the candidates that were put into these positions were basically unwinnable. They weren't strong, charismatic characters that are needed. They weren't like Nigel Farage types. They weren't, I wouldn't say even Alex Antic types. Alex Antic is a strong character, very well spoken, knows his stuff, and he speaks well. You need 10 Alex Antics to do what he wanted to do, not just one. So unfortunately, yeah, the king took over and filled the place up with not the right people. Yeah, and I think that's the downfall of the Liberal Party in this state, to be honest.
Look, honestly, I feel like we're watching the complete destruction of the Liberal Party in this country. And again, my family voted for them forever until about 2019. They started voting for Cory Bernardi and a few of the others.
Cory Bernardi's a real one, by the way. He's great.
He is. You know what's funny? I've actually never voted Liberal.
Ever?
No, my first election, I do
Greens.
believe, was 2019. It was actually Conservatives. No, never Greens. No, never Greens. Now, by the time I was voting, I think the first election, the timing of it, I just so happened to be, 2019, and I voted strongly Conservatives. But my parents, they were Liberal voters. They weren't Labor voters.
Yeah.
But look, I don't actually like Liberal. Let's be clear about this, guys. Liberal basically did the lockdowns. They blew out the debt. We're on track for $1 trillion in debt. And they burned the Menzies We Believe statement, their founding document.
They removed it from the website, I believe.
They did remove it. If you want to find it, you're going to have to go to the Menzies Institute to find it on the website.
which is deplorable.
So 99%, and this is why I laughed at when I told the story about the Light newspaper, I laughed about people saying it's a Liberal Party takeover. So 99% of our cards, maybe more, they are how to vote cards that recommend how to vote. They've basically never backed the Liberals as one. And it's always been a conviction party, a minor right party, that is basically full of people that are fair income, they say it exactly how it is, they're conservative, they're Christians. Yeah. And so look, I look at the Liberal Party as a tragedy because they used to be that. They used to be that.
But the Liberal Party also used to be the competent party. So when you're a voter, like there was two parties to vote for, Labor, and Labor is the feel-good party, the everything's okay party. We're going to make like the mum. And they had the Liberal Party, which was supposed to be the competent, and the candidates were supposed to represent competency. They were supposed to be successful business types or whatever field they're in. If it's academic, if it's medical, if it's engineering, whatever field it was in, you knew if you were voting Liberal, you were going to get a professional who knew how to get things done.
Yeah,
that is not the case anymore. When you vote Liberal, you're not getting these competent people. You're getting these half-ass people who don't have any aura, don't have any strength. Quite frankly, a lot of them are not very good to look at as well, which is also quite important. And the Labor Party knows this. Visual appeal is super important. It's probably the most important thing. I think that's why Peter Dutton did so badly. So the Liberal Party isn't really living up to that. And I think candidacy is the key here. And
that's where I was going with that. So I just remember, I'll let you finish the point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the thing is, a lot of people might say, Antic, why did he go backwards in South Australia? Why did Labor get 4 senators and lose a bunch of lower house seats? I don't think that's on Antic in this state. I think that was because of the overarching Liberal Party campaign with Dutton and what happened at HQ in the last federal election. And again, a lot of people, might say, even now, why are you harping about the Liberal Party? The problem we've got is One Nation, whilst it's great, and the other minor parties, they're awesome, they are not a 50% party. No. They're not even a 30 or a 40% party.
No.
And so the issue is any means of governing together is going to be with the Liberals at this stage and the Nationals. And unfortunately, that is at least, not next election, but we're talking 2032.
You're right, because the way preferencing works, regardless, if you're going to vote Conservative, you're essentially always voting Liberal.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think, you vote One Nation, you vote whatever party, you're essentially always voting Liberal. Except for One Nation, they don't preference, maybe their preferences want Liberal, but essentially what you're saying, what I'm trying to get at is we need the Liberal Party to be completely reset, essentially. They need to, the swamp, I'll take Trump's thing, the swamp needs to be drained.
Yeah.
It needs to be reestablished, and there needs to be, and that's where I'm, pleased with kind of what Alex is doing. Yeah. That swamp draining, but it's just taking too long, in my opinion. That's my issue. It's taking too long, and I don't think there's enough good candidates being presented.
Yeah. Well, look, we can't bash him too much. Look, he's doing the right stuff. I think where the real problem is, it's at the Australian psyche, and a lot of people in politics have checked out. They think someone's just going to come in and solve it.
Yeah.
This is not the time. This is not the time. And again, I would not be doing this, and you wouldn't either, if we thought this was done and it's over. It's not over. In fact, it is the most critical moment. We're in the 6 most critical years of this nation right now.
Yeah.
You know, other than maybe when Japan was invading us, we are talking about this country being like, we've got rotten wood in this country, and we need a full refurbishment. Not a great reset, but we need a full
Yeah.
full refurbishment. We need reform. There you go, reform, Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
We need to reform this country so that we can actually work out exactly what went wrong with the cancer in this country, but also understand that we've got to lean into each strength of each state,
Yeah.
because each state is like a finger on my hand. We need to get them to work together to form a fist. And when I look at what's going on with the federalism, when I look at what's going on with how the federal government takes all the taxes and basically bullies the states, we need to make sure the states have a bit more power to do what they want. Probably a bit more of a conversation for the nerds out there.
Yeah.
But my point is, South Australia is at an impasse because you guys recently had some crazy donation laws come in.
Yeah.
And talk about fascism.
Yeah.
It favours the incumbent parties. The Liberals, I don't know why they agreed to it. I don't think, maybe they didn't understand that this was going to be the destruction
I
of
think
their
they
party.
would think I think they would think that in the future it would benefit them at some point. They would think it'd flip, and they would get the benefits of it. That's my theory.
But like, I don't understand. Like, at no point have they looked like they're going to beat Malinauskas. So they must be gearing up for the next election.
Yeah.
So the next election, they'll have even less funding to work with.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I don't. I'm like, guys, like, I'm from construction. This isn't my bread and butter, but like, I've fought 20 elections in the last 4 years. I've been looking at this, and I'm like, I don't understand why you'd agree to these terms.
I think the situation in South Australia is that Labor and Liberal are sitting on large money that they've had for a long time.
Right.
And right before the laws came in, both parties received quite a bit of money, millions of dollars. Right. So they're not too worried. Right. They've got years to really. The future is the problem. If they can't get their stuff sorted in like next 10 to 20 years, that's when the real issues will start. When the money starts to drain.
It's a gamble.
So it is a gamble.
It's a big gamble.
But the problem here is the right, the Conservatives across of Australia, they are eager, and in South Australia, let's talk about South Australia, they're eager for Australia first. The reason why Labor does so well in this state is because they're not Australia first, they're council first. The Labor Party, and this is what the Premier does very well, they go to all the councils across this state and they ask the councils, what do the people in your councils care about most? Then the Labor Party get together and they work policies around these councils.
Right.
So it's the councils that actually hold the power in terms of policy creation in the state. So if you want to win the state, you've got to win the councils.
I think that's a part of the mechanics.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I think that New South Wales and Victoria have this, New South Wales and South Australia have this in common with our premiers. They avoid the culture wars. They're very middle of the road. They stick to the basics, roads, infrastructure, the stuff that people talk about around the dinner table.
Parking.
So Chris Minns, my premier, the guy's brilliant. I don't know how the Liberals are going to beat him in March 2027, a year after your election. He, similar to Malinauskas, often people say those two are the most similar premiers to each other. They're brilliant with regards to the battles they pick, and they don't look like they're slowing anytime soon.
No.
The Liberals really are not putting their best foot forward, in my view.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned about it, to be frank.
Well, I think that comes down to, it's back to the candidates. The people in Australia who do want Australia first, they need to step into the arena. It is coming down to that. We need those people who are great, those people who have the same charismatic qualities as the Premier here in South Australia, or who have the same wit or intelligence or even success. Like, where are the bourgeois? Where are the old money? Where are the new money people who have done so much good stuff in South Australia? Where are they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, if there's people out there listening to this, if you're waiting for your moment, now is the time. Like, literally the next 6 years, when it comes to what's going on with regards to these organizations, Turning Point setting up chapters in various states, now is the time to get involved. Do not wait. I will not be holding anything back. I basically live on a plane right now, traveling the country, making sure I do a lot of work behind the scenes to get primed and ready for these elections. Because, to be frank, and I won't name names, Most organizations, in fact, there is no other organization in this country that fights as many elections as Turning Point.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
And they're usually more focused with the federal, more sexy elections. But unfortunately, they don't understand the meaning of the saying, all politics is local. And I think that the Labor Party understand that in this
More than
state.
anyone.
I didn't know that they did that with council.
Yep, and this is to give credit to Lucy Hood. She was the one that kind of put this forward. But yeah, the premier last night was like, okay, parking. There's no parking. There's a parking issue. Bang.
Yeah.
And if you're an everyday South Australian, you hear parking, you go, oh man, well, we do need more parking.
Yeah.
That instant, you win. You win an election just by something so simple. It's that simple. We're missing this, and I think that comes down to the brilliance of the candidates. And I guess this is my next question for you. And
Yeah.
Turning Point's position, Turning Point's opportunity, and what we are here to do.
Yeah.
Where I would say this, and you can kind of give me your spill.
Shoot.
I feel like Turning Point's responsibility now is to help those types of people who are waiting on the sidelines, who've been battling or considering getting into the arena.
Absolutely.
How do we help them? How do we help get these brilliant people? And in saying that, sometimes the best leaders don't want to lead. Sometimes the better leaders don't want to lead. Yeah. So I don't want to. This is the hard
shadow warriors.
The shadow warriors or the Taoistic warriors.
You need those, absolutely.
And this is my problem.
Taoistic.
Technically, if you are, well, it's true. Taoism is.
I like it. Like it. So go on. Your sentences are pregnant with meaning. I love it. Go on.
Those people who do are the brilliant leaders. People say, well, why aren't they stepping up already then? Like, if they're so brilliant, if they're so great, where are they?
Why should they?
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Why should they?
Why should they?
You know, and I say that to people as well. I say, like, why should Joel Jammal not go to America and stay there and work for some of the organizations there? There's more money in it.
Yeah.
It's because I love this country. It's because at the end of the day, I am going to be very sad. There is no other country I would rather... you know where your roots lie because it's where you're prepared to die. All right? You know where you are belonging to. Like, I love Sydney. I love my area of Parramatta. I don't like seeing, packs of foreigners around the trains going to the city and me not being able to go to the city like I used to when I used to go to UTS in the city. I love my area. I love the smell that it gives off near the end of the year. I love how safe it feels walking the street, how clean the streets are. My family is here. My father, my grandfather are buried in this country. There's a lot of people out there. If you really boil it down and you go to Dubai or the south of France or, El Salvador or wherever you want to bug out to, it will never feel like home.
Yeah.
This is the only place worth fighting for with regards to you and your context. So how is Turning Point going to do that? How are we going to actually influence the election? We're going to do exactly what we've done in the previous elections and more. And for those of you that may not have heard the projects because you haven't had a state election here in a while, we roll out 9 different projects. And just briefly, the first one is basically the volunteer funnel. We send people to volunteer for various different parties. We have the educational graphics. We have a policy matrix, which shows you all the policies the parties are running on. And it compares all the different parties on 30 different questions, like on education, on economics, on politics and democracy. And we've also got other projects like the transparency reports. So if you type your address in, it'll tell you your local member of parliament, it'll tell you their voting record, it'll tell you any scandals in the media that they've been up to. What have they been up to in the 4 years that you've given them power? They hate me for that. They don't like me doing that because there's nothing like that exists in this country.
Yeah.
The 4th project is a how to vote card. You put your address in and it tells you who we recommend voting in your area. And that is based on their track record, on the policy matrix, the policies they're running on. We generally support minor right parties, then the Liberal Party, then Labor, and then the crazy communists, the Greens. And all that. That's how our cards generally go in past elections. Our 5th project shows you how the parties preference each other. Sometimes they cut deals to support each other on the how to vote cards. And we like to expose that. And the 6th project is basically training videos. How do you be a candidate? How do you find local issues and campaign on it? How do you hand out how to vote card effectively at the polling booth? That is going to make people want to trust you. How do you be a scrutineer to secure the vote for secure elections? the seventh project's an exciting one. I'm not going to announce just yet. But the eighth project is one that is basically about giving people the tools to campaign. And I also won't go into detail about that just yet. Those are a couple of new things I'm working on the background, and I'm not going to announce those until we pull the trigger on that. But the last project is we've got to set up more chapters in this state, whether that's the universities, whether that's high schools, even. That is where Turning Point is going. That is the direction we're going. And the overarching goal is we want to give you guys more transparency about your elections. We want you to have more information than ever before about who's running, what they've been up to. And we want the politicians to shut us down. We want them to see us as the biggest threat in keeping voters informed and keeping the bastards honest, to be frank.
Yeah.
That's what we're about. And that's our track record with previous elections. That's why we have a following of 600,000 online, not including yourself with
Yep.
300,000. That's why we just crossed the 1 billion view mark last month. And that's the vision ultimately Charlie Kirk trusted us with. It's to be the ambassadors for freedom, free speech, to work for business and make sure that small, medium businesses, especially in this country, can thrive. People can raise their kids how they want to raise them. That's what we're about. That's what my family's about. That's what your family's about. And that's why, I'm pleased to be working with you in bringing Turning Point to this state.
So, if you had to speak to the South Australians directly, so they're all here, all millions of them, and talking to them, what would you say to them as a whole? And to those who are those candidates we're speaking of, or those who are the potential people who should get into the arena, what would you say? How can we help? How can we be there for them? And what do we expect with Turning Point to be able to deliver for them?
Look, I would tell them that Turning Point is the single place where you can find everything you need to know on your politicians, how to actually tangibly fight back, not just share a video, how you can actually breathe your values into politics. I make no bones about it. I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, I'm someone that likes government being as small as possible as well. I've got a bit of a libertarian streak. Turning Point exists to give you the tools in order to breathe those values into politics. That's why we exist. We want to show you who's punching you, why are they punching you, and how can you punch back politically. The politicians, they don't want you to understand exactly how this works. That's why most people didn't learn this stuff in school. I was very graciously given a phenomenal education. My parents sacrificed everything to send me to that school. And I'm really pleased to share that knowledge. There's a great verse in the Bible that says that. Well, you freely receive, freely give. And we run on donations. We put our resources out totally for free. And ultimately, I will keep doing this until the job is done. That is when we can honestly say that Australia is a lucky country again, that Australia is great again, and that Australia is Christian again. That is my objective. That is my modus operandi. And I pray that we can, in the next election, bring Adelaide, bring South Australia as close to that as possible. I love the people in this state. I love coming to Adelaide. I think this is probably my fourth trip this year to Adelaide. And when I see the people in this state, they are starving for some truth being spoken to power right now. They don't see leadership around. They don't see the Liberal Party cutting the mustard right now. And they don't see a situation where they have confidence in having more kids or raising a family. This is not the Australian way. This is not the fair go that Australians want to see in this country and in this state. And so whatever I can do to help in this state election in March, I'm at South Australia's disposal, and I will be for other states when their elections come up too. But I appreciate you, putting your hand up, supporting the mission, and believing in the mission. And I rely on you and being the organisation's eyes and ears in this state. And I think it's in no better hands.
Yeah, I just want to make it, well, now we're together, I'll say thank you for offering this great honor because, look, I grew up watching Charlie Kirk and I grew up watching Turning Point and the work they did, and being a Christian myself, there was a lot of alignment there and a lot of mixed emotions with everything that's been happening so far. And I definitely feel like there's something deep and profound about this and our connection now. And I guess my promise to the people of South Australia is to continue being someone who tries to tell you the truth to what I believe it is to be. And it's always up to you at the end of the day and your relationship with God and your relationship with the universe to see if that truth is true to you. I think there is an objective truth. I think there is a one truth, and everything else is delusion. And I think if you listen and you're introspective enough, you can find that truth. So if I can help you, even by 1%, get closer to the truth, then I think I've done my job. In terms of this election, in terms of the future of South Australia, I will always do my best for the state. It's just who I am as a human. I can't help myself. Even if that ends badly, I will always defend myself. And I mean badly in the sense where I'll lose a job or lose a client or lose this. I'll always put South Australia first. So,
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned Charlie Kirk. Charlie wanted Turning Point to be global.
yeah.
That's where things were going. He was touring Japan, South Korea. That's where things were going. And I hope to play a part in that. We've gotten a lot of requests for Turning Point chapters in Asia. The US are a bit busy.
Yeah.
Whatever I can do to help Asia, I will try and do. So I need competent people in this country to make sure that we can keep that Charlie Kirk vision going, giving people back the power in their hands and helping them understand their democracy. But yeah, Japan, South Korea, the Solomon Islands, the Philippines,
Yep.
New Zealand, these are all countries that have been in contact with us, people that have sent us proposals. They love what we're doing.
Good.
They love what the US are doing. They love what the UK are doing. There is a brotherhood we are in. Whilst we are all nationalists of our own countries, we are also in a shared struggle against globalists, against anything that's not against our national interests. And so, yeah, we are Australia first. We are basically for this country being as strong and independent as possible.
Yeah.
Whether that's energy, whether that's defense, whether that's economy, this is where we need to be as a country. And only then can we really help the world in the best way possible. But it's got to be from a position of strength.
And in saying that, the unity, we keep saying Australia first. I don't want to be facetious here, but it's not really Australia first. It's actually God first. It's always God first. And then when you put God first, our country, Australia, will thrive. I think that is deep and profound. I think people are forgetting that. God first, Australia will be profound. And also the linkage of that.
Yep.
You talk about countries like Korea who are dealing with massive problems, Japan,
Yeah,
economically, population, birth, fertility is all across the world. I think we're in a battle against truly evil. I think there is an evil out there that we're truly facing. And if we can unify with theology through God, then we can do best for all our own countries in a nationalistic sense. It doesn't have to just be this. This is where I think there's issues here with this. There's this pure nationalism. Yes, nationalism is great. But if you're not with God, if you're not a warrior of God, if you're not fighting with God, if you're not speaking to God every single day, then you're going to lose that war. That's not how it works.
That's what they call it Christendom, right?
Yeah.
The brotherhood of nations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you want to put Australia first, then you got to put God first. Essentially, that's and that doesn't mean, I don't mean that by removing a secular government. I'm not saying it needs to change the laws. I'm not saying we have to go that far. I mean God first with you internally, and how you treat your mind, and how you speak to yourself, and how you speak to your family and your community and your loved ones. That's what I mean by that. We don't have to change and bring the church to government. That's not what I'm saying.
Why not? No, I'm joking. It's just like,
No, we can, but if God willing. But I don't think God gave us free will, and that's why this is my biggest fight with a lot of these people. I stand by so many of these activists who want to do such great change.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, God gave us free will. So we don't need, it's a libertarian mindset. God is a libertarian. Yeah. You don't need big government with God.
That's right.
It's libertarian inside. So,
to that. No.
But look, Joel.
Yeah, mate.
Very happy that you're here. We've got a big day ahead of us. We've got a lot of work to do, guys. So we're not just going to sit around and drink coffees all day.
It's literally about 90% of the work is not on camera.
Yeah, this
I just filmed something on camera for a month.
Yeah.
Not even joking.
Really?
Yeah, people think that it's all scheduled videos. I've been working hard. Look, we've got some phenomenally exciting things coming, not just for Australia, but for specifically South Australia. And I'm really looking forward to sharing more of that as time goes on. But George, mate, I couldn't do this without you in this state. I really appreciate you having me on this interview. I'm looking forward to the meetings we're about to do.
Thank you so much. No, it's an absolute pleasure. And I'm just so happy you get to be here and get to meet you in person finally. And we have a big mission. We have a big job ahead of us. And let's see how we go.
Absolutely.
I believe in us.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you. And believe in you. Believe in you and I believe in you.
Yeah. Let's go to the casino.